Hi, everyone. Welcome to Bleav in Bills, presented by FanDuel. I'm Adam Bonini of WGRZ TV, Sports Talk Live, Buffalo. Sal Majorana, the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. Hey, Sal. How you doing today?
I am good. How are you, my friend?
Not bad. Not bad. Warming up. I like it. And with the warmer weather comes the conclusion of the first week of OTAs. Anyway, and
Ooh,
kind of there
exciting.
never is. I know. It's there never is really a true off season in the NFL. You've got chunks
from
of
the middle of June to the third week of July is generally vacation. Everywhere else there's something going on. So yeah, as you've known for how long have you known me, Adam? 30 some years. This is not my favorite time of the football season because it isn't football season. Yet we're still over there talking about this nonsense.
Well, it's a little bit different when you have the degree of change there's been in Orchard Park, right? I mean, I think you can glean some things. Usually, I mean, in the like under McDermott, this would be just repetitive, and you'd have to like scrape for storylines most of the time or whatever. I think there are a few here worth getting into, which is kind of the impetus for doing this show today, right? And you've written on a number of these in the Democrat and Chronicle. So, but I guess a lot of people would want to know from you, because you're there, you're on the beat actively still. What changes have you seen, or how is the vibe different under Joe Brady? What read can you get on that at this early point in time?
Yeah, look, I mean, these are still voluntary sessions, so the full team is not there. There were a few guys that were missing. Well, the day we had availability on Tuesday, James Cook wasn't there, and Spencer Brown and Deion Dawkins weren't on the field. They showed up late, but so stuff like that. It's voluntary. Attendance is very good, because I just think in today's NFL, Adam, unless there's a contract situation going on, most of these players show up to these OTAs because it's just part of team bonding too. And you go there, this is your job. And I think a lot of guys take it more serious than they ever did back in the day. So, they probably had 90 to 95% of the team on the field the other day, which is good. And you're right, there is some change this year. So the installation and the learning, especially on the defensive side, you get some of that done now. And you want to get that done before you go to training camp. You want to go into training camp ready to roll. There's still some installation that happens at training camp, but you want to have it mostly done in these sessions before they go on their little summer vacation for a month. So there is value to it. I always tease because it's just, utterly ridiculous that we're paying attention to football in May, but this is the world we live in. So, and there are some things, to pay attention to over there if you're into storylines in the middle of May. So we can hit a few here if you want. There's a couple obvious ones, but we can roll through it if you like.
Well, let's go ahead and roll to the best of our ability. We've rolled for a long time, Sal.
Yeah.
And rolled very well. So again, I try and put myself in like a diehard fan's perspective when we record these, because those are the people we're actually reaching. That's the large component of our audience for this particular show. And others. And I would want to watch Josh Allen and DJ Moore, right? Because where this does help in the process, instinct, feel, chemistry, all of those things, that can truly start to form, even though they're very limited in what they're doing and what they can do at this particular point, right? That can start to form between a quarterback and a receiver. Fair to say?
And there's no doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt that those two, they're new teammates. There's a lot of expectation being put on DJ Moore. He's really the first legitimate number one type of guy that they've had since Stephon Diggs walked out the door. So, and they traded a second round pick to get him. They're paying him a lot of money. So there's a lot of expectation, and I would think there's some inherent pressure on DJ Moore. He'll flatly admit or deny that there's pressure because he's an 8-year veteran, and what does he have to prove? But he does have to prove something to the Bills. They've got to prove that he was the right guy to bring in here. He and Allen have to get on the same page in these OTA sessions. So when they can get to training camp, as I said, it's full go and no looking back. So we saw a little bit of it on Tuesday. Again, fans have to remember, we only get 1 day of access per week. They practice 3 times a week. And on some, and Brady explained this when he talked before the practice. Some days when you guys are out there, you'll see certain guys doing things, and then maybe you don't see anybody doing anything. You can't read into it. We were fortunate that DJ Moore was out there with Josh Allen Tuesday, and you could tell. And Allen said this when he spoke to reporters after that, yeah, this guy can play. I mean, he's smooth. He made a couple really nice catches where he kind of contorted his body, and Allen was impressed with what he saw. So again, most of that's routes on air. there's no contact, no real coverage happening. But yeah, it looked good for the first day that we've seen him out there as a Bill. So yeah, keep moving forward. But he's got to play for them. He's got to play well for them, Adam, because they invested something in DJ.
Well, among the more significant developments or interviews, I should say, that took place was the fact we really heard from Keon Coleman, right? For the first time since that disastrous press conference. In the Bagula comments that he wasn't Bean's first choice and all of that. And I looked at it. I mean, I was happy to hear him say what he said, take ownership of it. I don't know. We'll see how that's a situation that obviously has to, play itself out. But at least at this point, Coleman outwardly appears to have been handling that to the best of his ability and in the right way and using it as motivation and all of those things. But the old expression, actions speak louder than words, right? That certainly applies to Keon Coleman.
Well, look, I mean, this was the same thing that there wasn't the Bagula comments last year, but after his rough first season, we all know what happened. He got hurt and came back, really didn't play well. And both Bean and Sean McDermott kind of called him out after the playoff loss, saying, he's got to be better. And we heard all these things. Oh, Keon's having a great off season and he's ready to roll. And we're already hearing that now. We've heard Brady say, yeah, he's doing all the things he's supposed to do. And, here he is at OTA and he's doing the job. He's doing the work. Well, again, we heard that last year. Now you throw on the Bagula comment, which makes the spotlight on Keon even brighter. So he's saying all the right things. He said all the right things when he talked to us on Tuesday. I actually saw him make a few nice plays in practice yesterday. Again, nobody's covering him, but he made some nice catches. So it's all about Keon. No, it's on him. This is his season where he has to put it all behind him and prove that he can actually be a useful part of this offense. There's some competition he's got to deal with this season, right? I mean, we just talked about DJ Moore, Shakir. He's battling with Josh Palmer and Trent Sherfield and Skyler Bell, maybe even Mecole Hardman, right? To get a game jersey on Sunday. So he's going to have to step it up. Again, he was good the other day. He said all the right things. He called his season exactly what it was last year. Ass was the word he used, and he was right. It was an ass season. So glad he admitted it. Now it's time to go show that you learned your lesson and you're ready to be a mature NFL football player.
I want to talk a little bit more about that competition. That was where I was going to go next. And obviously DJ Moore's acquisition, that stands on its own. I mean, he's going to be as close to their A1 as you can possibly get. He will be their top receiver. Whether he's a prototypical alpha type receiver or whatever, people can debate that, but they made that move. That's who they're going with. But you mentioned that mix that Coleman is going to be competing with for a game jersey. The one that really intrigues me is Skyler Bell. I think this kid can come in as a rookie and have an impact. His versatility, range, playmaking ability, all of that really intrigues me. I found him to be the most interesting draft pick they made, I think, this year, given the context of what's happened offensively and what they lacked and what they would look to add or whatever. What have you seen from him, and what's your feeling about Bell as a player?
Yeah, well, we saw him at rookie camp. We had the opportunity to see one day of that, and if you remember, we talked about it. He had kind of a rough day the day we saw him. He dropped a few passes early, and Brady had to come over and kind of give him a little pep talk. And Bell did talk that day to us reporters, and he said, "Yeah, I was a little bit nervous." So what I saw of him on Tuesday, he was out there. He looked fine. I really didn't notice him too much at him. Like I was kind of paying more attention to Keon and to DJ Moore, to be honest with you. But look, they drafted him in the 4th round. He had a great last season at UConn, a year when everybody they played knew he was going to be the offense, and he still excelled. So that's good to see. The issue with him, Adam, I think is going to be it's special teams, right? He did not play any special teams in college. And if you're going to be the fourth or fifth receiver, especially the fifth receiver on really any NFL team, you got to play special teams. So he's going to have to learn how to do that, not only in these sessions, but certainly in training camp, if he's going to be there on game day. I mean, if Coleman and Josh Palmer, two returning veterans, play up to their capability, it'll be tough for Skyler Bell to get a jersey at least early on. And remember, Trent Sherfield's here. He's here for one reason, to be a blocker in the run game and a special teams guy. So Skyler Bell's competing with him. So it's going to be a little bit of a climb for him. And it might take an injury to somebody to get him on the field early. That is, unless he blows them away. If he blows them away, then he's going to play right away. So we'll see where it goes.
Let's switch gears and go to the other side of the football. And one of the big question marks in this new Jim Leonard defense and everything else is Terrell Bernard. Can he continue to be the answer in the middle of that defense moving forward? What's your read on his health, everything about what he's been through in recent years, the player that he is, and his particular fit in this scheme?
Yeah, look, he talked on Tuesday, first time, obviously, since he got hurt in that Eagles game. We haven't really seen him. He was kind of disappeared for the rest of the year. And he said it was just his worst year ever as a football player. He had 4 separate injuries, Adam. He started in training camp. Then he had one week 6, he had one, week 12, and then week 17. 4 different parts of his body got hurt. So he was completely ravaged. And it showed when he did play, because he was never healthy the whole year. He just wasn't the same player. So he told us he feels really good. He feels like everything is kind of recuperated the way it's supposed to. And he's excited about where he might fit in the new defense. Look, he's going to play. He's going to be a starter on this team. They invested some pretty good money in him last year. The first year of that contract actually starts this season. And he said, look, it's a very linebacker is linebacker. A lot of the responsibilities are the same. Find the ball, tackle the guy with the ball. That doesn't change. But he did think, and again, we'll see how it unfolds, but he thinks this defense could bring out some of the skill set that maybe he couldn't quite utilize in McDermott's defense. And the first thing was blitzing. You remember in 2023, his first year as a starter, it was a breakout year. I think he forced 6 turnovers that year. He had 6.5 sacks, Adam. They used him as a blitzer that season. The last 2 years, he hardly blitzed at all. So he thinks that in Leonard's defense now, he's going to be asked to do a little bit of that. And for a guy who's 230 pounds, whatever he is, he's got some quicks to him. And he might be able to find a way to affect the quarterback. And he also pointed out that in Leonard's defense, he thinks there's going to be a little bit more man coverage. So rather than playing a lot of zone where things can get screwed up and you can be, you could look bad in zone defense sometimes, he thinks his skill set is a little better suited to just having a man and following him wherever he goes, because he's a good athlete. He can run with tight ends, he can do something like that. So I think he's excited about where it might go. Still got to do it, and he still has to stay healthy. But look, I wasn't ready to give up on Terrell Bernard. It was clear that he just couldn't play last year because of the injuries. He's still a pretty good player for them, and I think he's going to take a step forward in 2026.
Anything else you've noticed out there? A lot of times, whether it's players coming off injuries, I think we need to have maybe a conversation about Dalton Kincaid, right? And his decision not to have surgery. I think that's an interesting one. And players change diet, workout regimen, that sort of a thing. I think you mentioned that Dwayne Carter, for example, has put on some weight. What are some of the other things that you may have noticed in the limited access that you guys get during this period of OTAs?
Yeah, Kincaid talked. I wasn't in on the Kincaid scrum, but he was asked about why no surgery, and I think he pretty much said the doctors do not believe that was going to be something that he had to do. They think he's going to be okay. Again, I'm no doctor. I don't exactly know why they didn't perform the surgery, but apparently they feel it's healed up enough to the point where he should be good. Now it feels like it's going to be a chronic thing for him though. I mean, that's just the feeling you get, but we'll see. We'll see where that goes. It was interesting. We've talked about this. They don't have a true nose tackle on this roster, right? We all thought they might address that in the draft. Pick a 330-pound guy to put right over the center. Even though Denver, as I've told you, if you look at how they played defense last year, they rarely had a nose tackle right over the center. So you think that Leonard would probably do things similarly. But then Dwayne Carter shows up, and he was 302 pounds when they drafted him. And apparently he's bulked up to 330. So that is an indication that if he's going to make this team, and he's going to have a fight to make the team, there's a lot of guys on that D line. If he's going to make the team, it looks like they want him to be a run stuffing nose tackle. So maybe that will be the way he gets on the squad, but it was interesting that he gained so much weight. The other guy was Landon Jackson, who played, I think, at like 262 last year before he got hurt. Somebody said, and I wasn't over for his either, but somebody said he wants to get to 285.
Wow. So
that's really interesting. That tells you he's not going to be an outside linebacker. He's going to be a defensive end. He's going to be one of the 4I, 5T, whatever that position ends up being. So that was a little bit interesting too. I think originally we all thought he was going to be part of the Rousseau, Chubb, Hoyt, that mix, but no, at that weight, I don't think he'd be playing that role in this defense.
How does Hoyt look to you in what you've seen of him?
Yeah, we saw him running around. He was doing some sprints, but he really can't practice at this point. So it looked fine, but that's just straight running. We don't see what other drills they're doing, lateral movement. We really didn't see much of that. But look, it's good that he's out there at least doing that. I do believe that he'll be ready to go. He got hurt. Like we said, it was late October when he got hurt. So you figure by September, 13th or whatever they're starting the season there, that's a pretty good run. I mean, guys with Achilles can get back in that period. So I'm kind of expecting that he'll be good to go at the start of the season.
That's a player that, and not that he's been forgotten, but I mean, we saw flashes of how impactful he could be. If he can be back and be healthy and stay that way, a guy like that can change the complexion of a lot of things in terms of there's going to be so much that's new with this defense anyway. But I mean, I could see him being a very critical part of it, assuming he's healthy.
The brief time we saw him, Adam, he looked really good last year. And remember, he played a little bit of this type of position when he was with the Rams, right? I mean, Rousseau has never done this before. Obviously, Bradley Chubb was brought in because he is that guy. Hoyt has played that outside linebacker in a 3-4 style defense. So he's been able to do that in the past. I think he'll be, I don't think it'll be a big adaptation for him to learn this defense. I think he could be a really impactful player for them. Again, you just hope that he's on track. He looked like he was on track. But yeah, that's going to be it's almost like getting a new player this year. Yeah. It's almost like he's a free agent this year because we hardly even saw him last year.
All right. FanDuel, presenting sponsor for this show and others here in the Bleav network of podcasts. Going to switch gears, talk a little bit of hockey here. Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals between the Carolina Hurricanes, Montreal Canadiens. Hurricanes home favorite at -196, Montreal at +162. And you and I had speculated, Sal, just to wrap this up here as we talk just a little bit of hockey. You and I had speculated that Carolina, which had gone 8-0 in the playoffs through the first couple of the rounds, might be a little bit vulnerable considering the epic amount of rest they had. And boy, was that ever the case in the Canadiens with a 6-2 win in Game 1, all over their case in the first period, right? And I'm just thinking, my goodness, if the Sabres just could have finished Montreal off, the opportunity
Buffalo would be up 1-0 right now, right? Yeah. Buffalo would be up 1-0 right now, Adam, because I think the Sabres would have done the same thing to the Carolina Hurricanes the other night, the way they played. It's, again, we could sit here and be irritated and all that. It happened, but Buffalo was the better team against Montreal. They should have won the game. And
absolutely.
Like I said, they would be up 1-0 and playing a really pissed off Hurricanes team tomorrow night. So
yeah.
What are you going to do? Instead, they did their exit interviews all week long.
They were the better team as the series progressed. right?
Yeah,
they really
they
were. Especially in, game 6, it really flipped in their favor. And for the balance of game 7, don't want to get too far into that right now. And I think, as you and I had said, game 2, it certainly wasn't in the Boston series, but it was in the Montreal series. Game 2 is a particular indicator, I think, I found over the years as a very good indicator as to what way the thing might go, and both teams initially adjust. And I do think that rust has a lot to do with it in the Hurricanes case. I see them doing a much better job in shutting things down from a defensive standpoint as that series progresses. But it just leaves you thinking about the what ifs with that Sabre team and what they might have been capable of. All right, you're on a tight schedule. You got some radio commitments on this Friday, so we're going to let you go right now. Thanks for being with us. We're going to continue with these Bleav in Bills pretty much weekly as we continue through the course of the offseason. Bleav in Bills presented by FanDuel. Bleav in Sabres as well, presented by FanDuel. Now its own show and doing very well. We appreciate your support on that. Thanks for being with us here on Bleav in Bills. For Sal Majorana, I am Adam Bonini. We'll see you next time. Thanks.